Now, starting in September this year, government will introduce a new curriculum for basic schools across the country with the aim of improving education outcomes. Now, as a build-up to the takeoff, the Ghana National Council of Private Schools is collaborating with the implementing agency, the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment, to train thousands of teachers who will be at the forefront of the implementation. Now, in the studio to help us understand what could potentially change with the new curriculum is Enoch Jetua. He's Executive Director of the Ghana National Council of Private Schools, and Steve Rebs, who is the National Director, Relations and Education. Gentlemen, thank you both for making the time to be with us. Now, I guess we'll start with you. So, walk us through it in broad strokes. What's going to be different for the experience of a pupil in the classroom?
Oh, okay, thank you. Let us use this opportunity to greet your cherished viewers this afternoon. The Ministry of Education is embarking on reforms, and one of the major reforms is the new curriculum that is going to be kickstarting coming September, as you already said. And these reforms is going to replace the old one that throw more light on cognitive development. But this one is going to be accessible by all, going to take control about the cognitive or this, let's say, the developmental stages of the child, taking into cognitive aspects and then the skill development of the child. So this is a new entire curriculum that we are going to have coming September.
Right. Now, Steve, tell us, how are the teachers being prepared to implement it?
Yeah, the teachers are being prepared, and that's really the reason why next week we'll be going to have this training. We are expecting to train more than 70,000 teachers to begin with. Next week's activity is a trainer of trainers, master trainers. Like I said, what is new about this one is that it's like a whole new system. In the old system, we used to do what we refer to as a chew, pour, and forget. Yeah. You just look at a textbook and you try to reproduce what is in the textbook. This one is going to be more activity-based. Education has been more like too academic. Why? You need to get a degree before you can get up there. Currently, we even have core subjects. You have to pass math, science, and it isn't everyone who is in that area. So the new one is going to be more activity-based. For example, if your talents are more in the area of arts and you're artistic, it's going to address all these things. If I have to give an example of a classroom, a typical classroom, what's going to happen is that, for example, you are not going to be told what your community is like. You are not going to read a book and say, my community is this way or that way. But you will be sent to the chief's palace. You have to see what the palace looks like. You have to go to where the groves are, the shrine is, the chapel, the mosque. And so before the lesson, and if you have to reproduce it, you are going to tell people what a grove is like, what the palace is like. The other thing too is that it's going to take away what we call examinations now. It's too much stress on the children. You have kids in kindergarten studying to write exams, extra classes and all that. What it's going to do now is that we are going to have assessments instead of examinations. And it's going to start with P2 and then
what's the difference between assessment and examination?
Assessment will not be an examination that will promote you to the next class. You go to P1 and then in P2 you are assessed. And then we'll try to correct what you couldn't do well in the P1, right. And then P4, and then P6, and then J2. That's how it's going to be. So it's an assessment. Okay. You don't have to pass an exam to go to the next class. The assessment has nothing to do with you staying in class or going for it.
Okay. A final question to you. I mean, the teachers who teach in our primary schools, they came up in the same system. They were taught by the same way. How are we going to ensure that they break old habits and start to teach this new curriculum in a way that actually does end up engaging children and teaching them practical ways of applying all the theory that we've been learning for decades.
Yeah, that is why Reeves was talking about the training TOT, the TOT that is coming to be next week. We have a roadmap for this. The roadmap is coming next week, Monday. All the private schools across the country, we have sampled 100 master trainers that the NACA, National Council for Curriculum Assessment, is going to train them 5 days residential training. So afterwards, they will also go to their various destinations, such as regions and districts, to train the private school teachers. And we are envisaged to train 70,000 private schools. With this training, we are not just going to allow anybody to go in and do any short B work or anything, or quack training or anything, but we have, even the people who are going to be trained will be certified.
Right.
Then the teachers will also be certified by giving them an ID card that direct any, let's say, regulator shows that this person has gone through this training. So we have all this.
5 days of training is enough to change habits of a lifetime?
We have about 3 or 4 phases. So the first phase is what I'm giving it to you.
Right.
The second phase will come. Then, so the next academic year, the teachers are going to pass through a whole lot of series of training, which we have it on our timetable.
Right.
And that is how we've programmed the training.
Okay. I want to thank you both for your time with us. We appreciate it very much. Now, check this out. He was stabbed multiple times with a knife, and when that failed to weaken him, his attacker used a pickaxe to strike him in his back. That killed him instantly. This is the story of Dennis Kwisidadze, who was murdered in the presence of his 6-year-old daughter on Christmas Day as he resisted attempts by armed robbers to snatch his vehicle. It's one of many crimes confronting residents of the twin communities, Tantra Hill and Achimota Mile 7. Joy News' editor, Fred Smith, lives in the community, and he brings us this, the first in a series of reports focusing on the terror visited on residents by armed robbers. This is part of a series called Joy in Your Community. Check this out.
Accra's twin communities of New Achimota, popularly referred to as Mile 7 and Tantra Hill, sprang up in the 1980s. This was due to excess demand for land in Achimota